crack didn't sound like glass. It was quieter than that. A sigh in the foundation of a life I thought was permanent. It was the silence growing thicker across the dinner table. A space that became less about conversation and more about the careful arrangement of cutlery. A buffer zone for unsaid things. There was no single storm, no dramatic exit. Just a slow, relentless leak of warmth. Until one day I realized the house of our life was cold. And I was the only one still trying to light the fire. The paperwork was clinical, a dissolution of assets and dreams. But the real split was in the mirror, facing the woman now solely responsible for two beating hearts that looked to her for everything. The world didn't just get harder. It transformed into a cruel, daily equation. My salary on one side, a column of numbers on the other, rent, utilities, groceries, shoes that were always outgrown, and the sum was a terrifying, constant negative. The fear was a physical thing, a cold stone in my stomach every morning. But the worst of it wasn't my hunger, my tiredness, my loneliness. It was the quiet in their eyes. The way my eldest stopped asking for the branded cereal. The way my youngest would just hold my leg tightly, wordlessly, when the phone rang with another unknown number. They learned a new language. The language of maternal stress, of whispered phone calls, of my forced, too bright smile that didn't reach my eyes. And then came the night of the empty chairs. I had scraped together enough for a simple pasta, but only enough for one serving. I made it, put it on my plate, and set the table out of habit. My plate and their two places. I sat down. The silence wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a presence. It was the ghost of their chatter, the echo of spilled milk, the memory of arguments over broccoli. It was the crushing, absolute weight of failure. The food grew cold as I stared at those empty chairs, each one an accusation. The lie the weight whispered wasn't loud. It was a cold, sure truth that seeped into my bones. You cannot do this. You are failing them. They would be better off somewhere else. That was the bottom. Not in tears, but in a paralyzing, soundless vacuum where even hope couldn't breathe. For days, that silence lived in me. I moved through my duties like a ghost, packing lunches, signing permission slips, a shell going through the motions. The fridge was a landscape of bills and reminders, a monument to scarcity. And then one morning, as I reached for the milk, I saw it. A new edition, tucked under a magnet shaped like a rainbow. A drawing. It was on the back of a used envelope, rendered in the furious, waxy scribbles of a 5-year-old. There was a big figure with a wild corona of yellow hair and a triangle dress. Inside the dress was a heart, clumsily colored in, so red and forceful it had nearly torn the paper. This figure held hands with two smaller blobs with smiley faces. At the top, in letters that marched unevenly across the page, it said, "World's best." My breath caught. It wasn't the artistry. It was the testimony. In my world of deficits, of not enough, my child had declared me an abundance. They didn't see the math problem. They saw me. Their why wasn't a future promise. It was present, persistent, and unconditional. It was in the cereal spilled on the floor that morning, in the stubborn request for the same story for the 5th night in a row, in the trusting weight of a sleeping head on my shoulder. Their love wasn't passive. It was a demand to show up. That drawing was the match. It didn't erase the fear, but it gave me something more powerful. A righteous anger. Anger at the lie that I couldn't do it. Anger at the situation that made my babies worry. I made a choice that day, not from a place of hope, but from a place of fierce maternal defiance. I would not just survive. I would build a new world for them, brick by brick, so beautiful that the struggle would one day be just a scar, a story of how strong we were. The hustle that followed was a blur of motion and exhaustion. The mom uniform came off, the work uniform went on. A stiff polo, service industry blacks. My days became a precarious ballet. Drop-offs, shifts, pickups, the second shift of home. Then, after bedtime stories and final goodnight kisses, the third shift began. The blue glow of the laptop would light my tired face as I took online courses, scoured freelance job boards, filled out forms for assistance I never thought I'd need. My bones ached with a perpetual tiredness. But in the chaos, I clung to the tiny, sacred moments, the smell of their hair after a bath, the surprising wisdom in their silly questions, the way my eldest would, without fail, pat my back when he hugged me goodbye. That was the rhythm, the relentless beat of work, underscored by the steady, sustaining bass line of their love. The pride of pushing through is a lonely fuel. You tell yourself you don't need help, that accepting it is a sign you're failing the grind. That pride met its shattering end in the fluorescent buzz of a grocery store on a Tuesday evening. The cart was carefully curated. Store-brand everything, bruised fruit on discount, the absolute minimum. I was already frayed, my mind a checklist of deadlines and tomorrow's early meeting. At the register, I unloaded my dignity with each can, hoping the total would align with the mental math I'd done in my head. Didn't. The cashier's polite voice announced a number $10 higher. Heat flooded my face. I started the agonizing triage. Put the chicken back. No, the milk is more important. But the bread. My hands trembled as I tried to decide which necessity to deny my children. The line behind me grew, a silent wall of impatience I could feel on my back. I was a spectacle of failure. Then, a hand reached past me. An older man with kind eyes and weathered hands placed a $20 bill on the conveyor belt. "For her," he said to the cashier, his voice calm and final. He looked at me, not with pity, but with a simple, profound recognition. "We've all been in a tight spot," he murmured, and gave my shoulder the faintest, most respectful squeeze. I was utterly speechless. The dam of stubborn self-reliance broke. Hot, silent tears streamed down my face as I managed a choked, "Thank you." It wasn't the money. It was the grace. In my focused, head-down struggle, I had forgotten I was part of a community. I had forgotten that kindness is not a transaction for the deserving. It is a thread woven through the human soul, and it reaches out to find you precisely when you are trying your hardest to be invisible. That man didn't just pay a bill. He handed me back my humanity. He reminded me I was seen, not as a case or a burden, but as a person. He taught me that receiving grace is not weakness. It is the first step in remembering how to be human. It was the turning point where my solitary fight began to transform into a shared journey. Progress after that was no longer a straight uphill climb. It was a spiral. We'd move forward, then face a setback, a broken down car, a sudden fever. But something had changed inside me. The stranger's kindness had been a seed, and my children's love was the rain. Slowly, tentatively, joy began to grow in the cracks of our struggle. It didn't arrive with a trumpet blast. It was in the quiet, defiant victories. The Saturday we spent painting their new bedroom. A tiny, sunlit room in a safer apartment, covering the drab walls with the colors they chose, getting more paint on ourselves than on the walls, and collapsing in a giggling heap. It was the lopsided, far too green cake we baked for a birthday singing off-key. It was the creation of our own silly traditions, Friday night pillow forts, the secret team handshake we invented. We were not a broken version of an old family. We were something new, forged in resilience, bound by a loyalty that had been tested and proven. One night, after a long day where everything had gone right, a freelance check cleared, a good parent-teacher conference, I did the rituals. I washed the dishes in the quiet, checked the locks, and then stood in the doorway of their shared room. The night light cast a soft halo. I watched the steady rise and fall of their chests, their faces smooth and peaceful, utterly safe. In that sacred quiet, I walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. I saw the tired lines, yes, the gray hairs I'd earned. But I didn't see a victim anymore. I saw a woman with eyes that had known despair but now held a steady, hard-won light. I saw a jaw set not in worry, but in determination. I saw the shoulders that had carried the weight, and found they were broader now. My children's love hadn't just sustained me. It had demanded I become someone. And in answering that demand, I had rediscovered her, the formidable, capable, and fiercely loving warrior who had been there all along. Strength, I learned, is not a suit of armor you put on to keep fear out. It is the decision to walk forward, your heart cracked wide open with love, letting that love be your guide and your shield. This journey did more than change our circumstances. It performed an alchemy on my soul. The leaden weight of pain was transformed into a deep, empathetic gold. A knowing in my bones that you never know the silent battle someone is fighting. The relentless struggle was transmuted into a core of unshakable strength, a knowledge that I could face what comes. And the kindness I received, that $20 lifeline, became a burning, permanent fire within me. A need to pay it forward, to be the hand that appears in someone else's freefall. Our story became living proof that an ending is just a harshly turned page. Your darkest chapter is not your finale. It's the crucible. Look at our table now. The same table where I once sat in hollow silence. It is rarely clean. It is covered in the vibrant chaos of our life. Homework sheets and crayons, a bowl of fruit, 3 plates often full of food we cooked together. It is filled with the sound of their stories tumbling over each other, of debates about superheroes, of our shared, belly-deep laughter. The light that streams onto it in the mornings is a light we fought for. The peace I feel sitting here is the profound peace of knowing we built this sanctuary, not from luck, but from 1 million small, courageous choices. Your story isn't over. It's just getting to the good part. And in sharing our stories, we do the most sacred work of all. We pass the thread. We remind every struggling soul that within the depths of the human experience, kindness is the indelible thread that can mend what is broken, connect what is lonely, and guide us, step by step, back into the light. We are the proof.